Hey, what's up, Mr. Teeps class? Today I'm going to be talking about my passion. I'm going to be giving you, I'll try, at least a 25-minute lesson about my absolute favorite television show. My passion, a huge part of my life. Survivor, the most underrated show on television and the best show on television. So, yeah, I've been into this show for a really long time. I've I've done a podcast. I'm still doing a podcast. I vlog about the show. I've seen all 40 seasons. That's right, 40 seasons. I've watched international versions of the show, and you can't possibly say that a show is doing bad for itself when it's done 40 seasons. That is more than Game of Thrones with 8 seasons, more than Breaking Bad with 5 seasons, and more than The Simpsons with 32 seasons. Survivor's done 40 seasons. The Simpsons have done 32 seasons. Clearly, they're doing something right if they keep bringing it back and it's as successful as it is to last 40 freaking seasons. That's a lot. You can't possibly say the show's doing bad for itself. You can't. So on my podcast right now, I am doing my top 100 Survivor players. It is a game, so there's been 600 something castaways. That's what they call them, players. I'm going to talk about the format because you guys don't even know what the show is. Some of you do, not everybody does. So basically, the premise of the show is you take a group of strangers, usually, you abandon them on an island, you divide them into tribes or teams, what are called tribes, and they compete in challenges for immunity. And the losing tribe has to go to tribal council to vote someone out. And this trend continues until either a swap or a merge. If it's a swap, all the tribes get mixed up to create new ones. They still compete in challenges. Sometimes it's 2 tribes, sometimes it's 3 tribes, and a few times it's even been 4 tribes. And the losing tribe, always one tribe usually, has to go to tribal council to vote somebody out. And this continues until a tribe swap happens, where they mix up all the tribes. And then that happens with the exact same format until a merge comes, where it is all individual. They compete in individual challenges for individual immunity. And they all go to tribal council together to vote one person out every time. And then this continues until one person is left. And that person is there to claim the $1 million prize. A lot of people think this is a very kooky premise. I mean, people have, thought that, like, no one's going to watch that. It's just so bizarre to a lot of people think it just sounds very absurd. A lot of people think it's really weird. But I've watched all 40 seasons. Okay, I've watched 40 seasons. Each season has 15 episodes. Okay, I like it. I like it. I love it. I'm overly infatuated to it. I'm addicted to it. And I expect anybody to watch it to at least kind of like it. It just I'm shocked if people told me, hey, I'm actually not a huge fan of the show. Like that just blows my mind. It really does. So I'm going to talk. I just talked about the format for quite some time, and they've switched some stuff up. They've gone to different locations. They've been in Fiji for a really long time recently, but they've been all sorts of places. They've been to Borneo, Malaysia, Australia, Africa, Marquesas, Thailand, the Amazon, Panama, Vanuatu, Palau, Guatemala, Cook Islands. They've been to Fiji multiple times. I say it again. They've been there so many times. China, Micronesia. They've been to Africa a few times. Brazil, Samoa, Nicaragua, Cambodia. They've been to so many places. And that's something that changes up every season. The format, it can be experimented different ways. They've done certain themes. They've done Survivor David versus Goliath, a tribe of Davids who struggled their whole life, and a bunch of Goliaths who have had it easy their whole life. Heroes versus healers versus hustlers is another thing they did. A tribe of heroes, people who are known for their courage. Healers, people that work to help others, and hustlers, people that are just trying to pay the bills. Millennials versus Gen X was done. Tribe of millennials and a tribe of Generation X. So the Gen Xers are basically boomers, and then the millennials are Mr. Teeps. And then I don't know what the youngest millennial is. I think it's like 23 years old to 37 years old at this point. In this year, it's something around those lines. Yeah, they've done some stuff. Definitely, they did a winners season recently, season 40, to celebrate the big milestone of 40 seasons. They brought back all winners. Uh, Blood versus Water. They've had people, a bunch of newbies, and their loved ones competing against each other, which was a huge war. It was insane. Brains versus Brawn versus Beauty. A tribe of really smart people, a tribe of really strong people, and a tribe of really beautiful people. So that was the theme that they did. Fans versus favorites, a tribe of fans of the show against a tribe of all returning players. That was pretty interesting. Survivor Game Changers, bringing back a whole bunch of people that have changed the game and made it into the way it is today. Um, they've done. I mean, where do I end? They've done Old versus Young, which is similar to Millennials versus Gen X. They've done all sorts of stuff. So they need to change the show every season. Where they still need to keep the same format. You know, it's what people keep seeing and keep being interested in, overly infatuated with, and liking. But they need to sort of change it up every season, make different twists, like the Hidden Immunity Idol. Before season 11, out of the 40 seasons, you just voted people out of a round. It was very pure. You just voted people out, and whoever received the most votes goes home. Not anymore. Now there's this thing called the Hidden Immunity Idol. Let's take this. I mean, like, this isn't obviously real, but it kind of just looks like this. It's kind of just like a necklace in the forest they find. Sometimes it's been a plaque. Sometimes it's been a stick. You know, they've diversified what idols look like. That doesn't really matter. It's something very powerful that you can find in the woods, in the jungle, at challenges, or sometimes even at tribal council, where you vote people out. And you can play it after the votes have been cast, but before they are read. And any votes cast against you do not count. They've done different renditions of this idol. One that you play before anyone's even voted, and it keeps you safe, no one can vote for you. One that you can play after the votes have been read, so any votes that were cast against you don't count. Person with the next highest number of votes goes home. They've changed the renditions of this idol, but it's made for some absolutely insane moments of the show, and it's what keeps it really exciting. You know, without the addition of idols, it would be a lot easier to figure out who would be going home every episode, and the appeal of the show wouldn't be as strong. So I'm talking a lot about the format, but I'm not really talking much about like the players, like what has happened in the seasons. So I'm gonna discuss that a little bit more, with the top 5 most iconic moments, and then I'm gonna talk about the top 5 best players of all time, not the ones that are on my list, but the ones that were voted by the fans as a whole as the top 5 best players. So, top 5 most iconic moments. We'll start with number 5. James going home with 2 idols in his pocket. So there was this one point where this guy was given an idol by another castaway to save him at a reward when he was kidnapped by the other tribe, who then went to a reward. And this guy, Todd, he had an idol. And he also knew where the idol from the other camp was, because the idols, basically the clues said that they were in the exact same place at both camps. Same lamppost, both tribes have the same lamppost back at their camp. And he had this idol. And he's like, okay, I've kidnapped you from a reward. That was a twist that season. You could kidnap someone from a reward, from the losing tribe of the reward. They were doing like a pampering reward. They haven't had that in a really long time because they're deprived of so much in Survivor. Anyways, he had an idol, and he taught. And he said, James, I'm going to give it to you to save you. You're in the minority on your tribe. You're in danger. I'm going to give this to you to protect you. Oh, and here's another thing. The other one is right on the arch at your camp, the thing that you walk into when you get out of the boat to head back to your camp. This was in Survivor China, season 15. And he's like, all right, man, okay, thank you very much. So then he takes the idol, so he has it. He then finds the other one, so now he has 2. And Todd, the guy who found an idol and told him where the other one was, is now goose egg. He has nothing, which kind of felt bad for him for that. But so he holds on to these idols, James, and he doesn't even offer to give Todd one of them back after he literally gave him one and told him where the other one was, which was a little bit selfish, but it's a game where being selfish can maybe help you win the $1 million if you're the last person left standing. So I guess for James's game, he felt like it made the most sense to hold on to these idols, not give any of them to anybody else. So he holds on to them, and we're at a crucial point in the game, final 7, and he keeps on holding on to them. Final 8, he was in danger, but somebody else ended up getting voted out, so it was good that he held on to them. All the way until the final 7. He was given the idol by Todd at the final 11. So he, at the final 11 out of 16 people, He was given the idol, and he was told who the other one was. He originally had possession of the 2 idols at final 11. He wasn't in trouble until the final 8. Almost goes home, receiving the second most votes, but he didn't play any of his idols, and he ended up staying. Going into the final 7, though. The last time you can play an idol is at the final 5. So this other woman, Amanda, said to Todd, if we don't get James out right now, it's a final 7 players. He can play one of his idols at the final 6, keeping him safe. He can play one of his idols at the final 5, keeping him safe, which means if we don't blindside him, which is a term used for voting somebody out with them having absolutely no idea that you're going to, then if we don't blindside him right now, and he doesn't go home this time, and he doesn't play any of his idols, you don't throw the majority of the vote on him. He can play one of his idols at 6, one of his idols at 5, securing himself a spot in the final 4. And the last, when 3 people are left in the game, a portion of the people that are voted out actually decide who wins the $1 million, which is an interesting concept of the game. So if he's guaranteed a spot in the final 4, he has a 75% chance of making it to that final 3, where he can then plead his case for the $1 million, where he at least had a shot at winning. And his social game was very good. He was a very likable guy. So the portion of people that were voted out might vote for him, because if you're likable in the game of Survivor, and due to the format of a portion of the people that are voted out decide which of the 3, or final 2, this season it was final 3, wins the game. If you're very likable, it's a great reason to give you the money. I mean, think about it. If you were voted out, and there were 3 or 2 people sitting at the end, they're facing you, and they're trying to plead their case for $1 million, who would you give it to? Would you give it to the person that backstabbed you, that won a lot of challenges but wasn't the most likable, or would you vote for the person that's the most likable and you like the most? You'd probably vote for the person that's the most likable. So James, who had these 2 idols, he was a very likable guy. Very likable. He had a phenomenal social game. He was funny. He was doing a lot of work around camp. He was a great asset. He was catching fish for everybody. He was Captain America. He could easily win if he got to the end. So Todd and Amanda were discussing. They're like, I think we need to blindside him. He's got 2 idols. And if you're at the final 7, and the last time that you can play an idol is at final 5, you have to be the biggest Fruit Loop dingus to not play one of the idols, okay? Fruit Loop, you're kind of weird, and dingus, you're stupid. So then he goes into tribal council, all cocky. Hey, this other woman he thought was going to go home, PG. He thought that she was going to go home. And he was like, oh yeah, PG's acting like she's going home. I'm safe, woohoo, it's final 7. PG's going to go home. I have an idol I can play at final 6, idol I can play at final 5. I'm golden, final 4, let's go. And then Todd and Amanda blindside him. They get these other 2 women, Courtney and Denise, and also PG and Eric were in on that. Yeah. Or maybe, I don't know who voted Todd exactly. Yeah, PG voted Todd, and then Eric, Denise, Courtney, Amanda, and Todd all voted James. So Todd and Amanda recruited Courtney, Denise, and Eric into all putting their eggs on one person. That person being James. And James was all cocky. He didn't play one of his idols, and he ended up getting voted out at the final 7 with both idols in his possession. And he was viewed as the stupidest player of all time up until that point. But there's somebody else I'm going to talk about that played on the next season that was even stupider. We're not going to get there yet. It's going to be the moment after this. So that's the 5th best moment of all time. And then, if you ever decide to watch Season 15 on CBS All Access of Survivor, I'm not going to spoil the winner. I'm just going to talk a little bit, give you a little, taste bud of what the show is. But I'm not going to, spoil everything just in case somebody in the class actually feels like watching it. At number 4, I have the final 4 of Season 13 of Survivor. So, there was this one guy, Ozzy. He won immunity. He was guaranteed a spot in the final 3. This season, it was the final 3 that were sitting at the end to face the jury, not a final 2. Just like China. And Ozzy, he has immunity, and Yul, this other guy, he has an idol that can be played after the votes have been read. So after all the votes have been read, it's very overpowered, I know. He can play it after the votes have been read, and he can save himself. All the votes that were cast against him don't count. The person with the next highest number of votes was sent home. And everybody in the final 4, this season, final 4 was the last time he could play it, not final 5. And everybody knew that he had it, so everybody was like, well, I'm not going to vote Yul because he's just going to pull out the idol. So it's completely risky to vote him. It's not even risky. He's going to save himself. So Becky and Sundra, the other 2 women, who were in danger. Ozzy was safe and Yule had that idol. They realized, hey, one of us two is obviously going home at the final four because Ozzy and Yule are safe. One with the necklace, one with the idol. So Becky and Sindra, they just say, okay, whatever, we'll put our votes on each other. And then Ozzy and Yule talk. Ozzy knows that Yule has the idol, can save himself. Yule knows obviously that Ozzy has the necklace because when you win the necklace, it's in front of everybody, so everybody knows you have the idol. When you find the necklace, when you find the idol though, it's usually anonymous unless somebody else sees you find it in the jungle. But if you're just completely alone, you're looking for it, it puts a target on your back if you look for it because the scene is a bit sketchy to try and help yourself in the game instead of be with camp with everybody else. But if you find the idol, you can just sort of hide it. So Yule, he did hide it eventually, but then eventually, a long time ago, he told Becky, and then he started just to tell everybody. So everybody knew about his idol. Ozzy and Yule were talking because they knew they were both safe, and they were like, okay, Becky or Sundra, who do we vote out? It's the final four, there's the only two options. What do we do? And they're like, okay, I think the fairest thing to do would be to let them make fire. So basically, fire making. At final four, and at this point, in between season 10 and season 34, there was a formal vote at the final four, and if there was a 2-2 tie, the two people that are in the tie would make fire to determine who would stay and who would go. That's only the case at the final four. Any other time, if there's a tie, everybody just revotes. But for some reason, at final four, there's no revote. So basically, what happened was Ozzy figured it would just be the safest thing to just put one vote on each to make it a 2-2 tie. So Ozzy, this guy, was phenomenal at catching fish. He was phenomenal at making fire. He was basically doing everything survival related. So it was really easy. Everybody could just sit around at camp and just let Ozzy be Superman. And yeah, a lot of superhero references here. Not sure why. Whatever. And he was just helping everybody, just serving them food on a platter, some fish, chopping coconuts, climbing trees. He was like the Jungle Boy. He was like Tarzan. And he was phenomenal at everything. And nobody else really had to do anything with his presence there. So Becky and Sundra didn't know how to make fire. They didn't know because Ozzy would just do everything. I'm not sure where he got all these skills from, but maybe they cast him because he was proven in some other facet to be great at all these things, so he'd be perfect for Survivor. And Becky and Sundra, they had to make fire that night. It was a 2-2 tie. They put their votes on each other. They had to make fire. So Becky and Sundra, because they never practiced, because Ozzy would do everything, they were striking this